Admiral Zerktal stood on the bridge of the Vraxian flagship, his 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the blue-green planet on the main screen. Earth, the primitive world that somehow managed to create technology far beyond what should be possible for a species that hadn't even colonized their own solar system. They are hiding something, he muttered to his second-in-command. No species develops quantum computing before mastering simple interplanetary travel. It defies logic. The Vraxian Empire had ruled this sector of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered 18 different alien civilizations, all of which now served as loyal subjects to the Empire. Earth would be the 19th. "Prepare the diplomatic vessel," Admiral Zerktal ordered. "We will follow protocol, even with these strange humans." The humans had been given one standard day to prepare for first contact. The Vraxian diplomatic ship landed precisely where the humans had suggested, on the large lawn in front of the United Nations building in New York City. Inside the General Assembly Hall, representatives from all Earth nations waited nervously. The U.S. delegation was missing their senior diplomat, who had come down with food poisoning that morning. Frank Miller, a mid-level State Department official, had been sent in his place. Frank stifled a yawn. He had been up late the night before watching the baseball playoffs, and the emergency briefing on alien protocol hadn't left time for coffee. He checked his watch. The aliens were 10 minutes late. The double doors at the back of the hall finally swung open. 6 tall, gray-skinned aliens with 4 eyes and ornate armor marched in. Their leader wore a helmet with red crystals that seemed to glow from within. "People of Earth," the alien leader began, his words translated through a device on his chest. "I am Ambassador Gurkvul of the mighty Vraxian Empire. We have observed your world for some time and have determined that you are ready to join our glorious domain as the 19th subject race." Frank Miller yawned again, not bothering to cover his mouth this time. The ambassador paused, all 4 eyes blinking rapidly at this unexpected reaction. "Perhaps I was unclear," the ambassador continued, his voice rising. "The Vraxian Empire demands your surrender. Your military forces are no match for our superior technology." The Secretary General of the UN stepped forward. "Ambassador, we welcome you to Earth, but we have no intention of surrendering our sovereignty. We would prefer to establish peaceful relations." At NASA headquarters, Dr. Ellen Wright was analyzing the images of the Vraxian ship. "This doesn't make sense," she said to her colleague. "Their propulsion system is only marginally better than our experimental drives, and these energy readings suggest their weapons are only about twice as powerful as our most advanced prototypes." The Vraxian ambassador was now listing demands. Earth's governments would be replaced by Vraxian overseers. Resources would be harvested for the Empire. Humans would serve in the Vraxian military. Frank Miller checked his phone under the table. The Yankees had hit a home run in the 9th inning. He smiled, completely missing the ambassador's final point. "You have 30 Earth days to prepare for our arrival," the ambassador announced. "If you resist, you will face annihilation." As the alien delegation marched out, reporters rushed to file their stories. By that evening, news of the alien war declaration was trending on social media. It remained the top story for almost 6 hours before being replaced by a scandal involving a famous movie star and 3 peacocks. Admiral Zerktal received the ambassador's report with growing confusion. They showed no fear, no panic, no pleas for mercy. "No, Admiral." They seemed uninterested. One human even fell asleep. "Fascinating," the Admiral said. "This must be some kind of psychological warfare. They want us to believe they are not concerned." He paced the bridge, deep in thought. Very clever, humans. Very clever indeed. Back on Earth, most people went about their daily lives. In the White House, staff debated whether to issue a statement, but decided to wait and see if the aliens were serious. After all, there were more pressing matters to address, like the upcoming budget vote and the president's falling approval ratings. The Vraxian war fleet began its journey toward Earth, expecting to face a desperate, terrified planet. they would be very disappointed. The Vraxian Empire sent small black probes to Earth 1 week after declaring war. Admiral Zerktal expected to see massive military preparations. Humans should be building bunkers, moving troops, and making weapons. That's what any normal species would do when facing the mighty Vraxian war fleet. Instead, the probes showed humans going to work, shopping, playing in parks, and watching sports. There were no signs of panic anywhere. They must be hiding their preparations underground, Admiral Zerktal said, scratching his gray skin in confusion. Send the probes lower. We need to see what they're really doing. At the Pentagon, General Carol Summers tried to organize a response to the alien threat. She called an emergency meeting with representatives from the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and various intelligence agencies. We need a unified strategy against these Vraxians, she said, looking around the table. A man from the CIA raised his hand. We believe this is an intelligence matter. Our agency should take the lead. No, this is clearly a military issue, said the Army general. Actually, interrupted a woman from the State Department, since these are aliens, this falls under diplomatic relations. The argument continued for 3 hours. They agreed to form a committee to study the problem and meet again next month. Meanwhile, Joe Daniels sat at his desk in the Department of Defense mailroom. He sorted through the day's letters and reports. One document labeled Vraxian Declaration of War landed in his inbox. Vraxian. Never heard of that country, Joe mumbled. He stamped it routine correspondence and filed it away in a basement cabinet. One of the Vraxian probes landed in farmer Peter Johnson's cornfield in Nebraska. The small black object crushed about 20 corn plants as it settled on the ground. Peter walked up to it, hands on his hips. Darn government drones, he said, kicking the probe with his boot. Always testing their new gadgets over my property. Peter didn't call the police or the military. Instead, he called his insurance company to file a claim for crop damage. The insurance agent told him to take pictures for the claim form. As Peter took photos with his phone, the probe scanned him and sent data back to the Vraxian fleet. The aliens were puzzled by his calm behavior. Surely he recognized an alien device. In New York City, another probe hovered over Times Square. Most people barely noticed it, assuming it was a new advertising drone or art installation. A few tourists took selfies with it in the background. "Check out this cool drone thing," said a teenager, posting the photo online with the caption, "NYC has the weirdest tech." The post got 52 likes. Admiral Zerktal reviewed the probe reports with growing frustration. "This makes no sense. They act as if we don't exist." "Perhaps," suggested his science officer, "this is a sophisticated psychological tactic. They pretend not to care to confuse us." The admiral nodded slowly. Yes, that must be it. They are more cunning than we thought." As the Vraxian ultimatum deadline approached, life on Earth continued normally. The president's advisors debated whether to mention the alien threat in her upcoming speech. "The polls show most Americans aren't concerned about it," said one advisor. "They're more worried about gas prices and the new tax bill." Plus, her speech is scheduled against the season finale of Celebrity Survival Island. Another pointed out, viewership will be low anyway. They decided to include just one short paragraph about monitoring the alien situation. In his flagship, Admiral Zerktal prepared for war. "The humans think they can fool us with their false calm," he told his officers. "But soon they will learn the true might of the Vraxian Empire." He sent a final message to Earth. "Your time has expired. The war begins tomorrow." The message was received by a night shift worker at a satellite monitoring station. He forwarded it to his supervisor, who was on vacation until next Tuesday. The email sat unread as the Vraxian fleet prepared its first attack. Admiral Zerktal stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the Earth grow larger on the view screen. Today was the day the humans would learn to fear the Vraxian Empire. "Target the military base in the Nevada desert," he ordered. Our intelligence shows it contains important human defense technology. The truth was that Area 51 had been selected mostly because the Admiral had seen it mentioned in human entertainment broadcasts. It seemed to be a place humans associated with aliens. What the Admiral didn't know was that due to a scheduling error, most personnel had been sent to a training exercise in Arizona. Only a skeleton crew remained at the base. The first Vraxian warship appeared over the Nevada desert at 9:17 a.m. local time. It was a massive vessel, nearly half a mile long, with glowing purple engines and weapon ports dotting its hull. Sam Martinez was fixing an air conditioning unit on the roof of one of the base buildings when he noticed the shadow. He looked up and saw the alien ship. "Ha," he said, pulling out his phone. "They must be testing that new aircraft they've been working on." He recorded a short video and texted it to his brother with the message. "Check out this crazy thing at work today." Special effects team outdid themselves. Inside the base, alarm systems began to sound. Master Sergeant Kelly Brown sighed and picked up the phone. "Is this another drill?" she asked the security officer on the other end. "Because I just got all my paperwork organized." "Not on my schedule," the officer replied. "But you know how it is. The brass never tells us anything." The Vraxian warship fired its main weapon. A beam of purple energy struck the desert floor near the base, creating a crater 30 feet wide. Windows shattered in nearby buildings. "That's some impressive pyrotechnics," Sam Martinez said as he continued filming. "Wonder how much that cost the taxpayers." More Vraxian ships appeared. They began systematically firing at hangars, runways, and communication towers. Surprisingly, their weapons caused less damage than expected. The energy beams seemed to dissipate when they hit Earth materials. What the Vraxians didn't know was that their weapons had been designed to work against the crystalline structures common to other alien worlds. Earth's carbon-based materials absorbed the energy differently. By pure luck, most of their shots hit empty buildings or unused areas. The few personnel present had taken shelter, following standard drill procedures. Sam's video went viral within hours. Comments poured in praising the amazing CGI work and Hollywood-level special effects. A few conspiracy theorists claimed it was real alien activity, but they were quickly dismissed. At the University of Nevada, a group of physics graduate students led by Lisa Cooper saw the video. "Those energy signatures are fascinating," Lisa said, studying the footage frame by frame. "They don't match any known weapons system." "Road trip," suggested her lab partner, Alex. 2 hours later, they arrived at the edge of the base, where security was turning away curious onlookers. The students used their university credentials to convince a guard they were there as scientific consultants. Inside, they began collecting debris and taking readings while the military personnel were still trying to figure out what was happening. In orbit, Admiral Zerktal watched the aftermath of the attack with growing concern. "Where is their retaliation?" he demanded. "No defense systems were activated. No aircraft scrambled to intercept us." "Nothing." His tactical officer cleared his throat nervously. "Sir, we've detected no communications indicating emergency status. Human media is reporting our attack as some kind of entertainment event." "Impossible." The Admiral slammed his fist on the control panel. "No species is this calm under attack. They must have invisible defenses we cannot detect. This changes everything." That evening, President Diane Powell finally addressed the nation about the alien attack. Unfortunately, her speech was scheduled against the season finale of Celebrity Survival Island. Only 12% of the country tuned in to hear her assurances that the government was assessing the situation. The winner of Celebrity Survival Island, however, trended worldwide on social media, completely overshadowing news of humanity's first alien battle. Alan Ross, CEO of Global Innovations, watched the viral video of the alien attack for the 5th time. Unlike most people, he didn't think it was fake. He recognized an opportunity when he saw one. "Janet, cancel my meetings for the next 3 days," he told his assistant, "and get me someone from the government who knows about these aliens. Within hours, Alan was on a video call with a tired-looking military officer. "So these Vraxians," Alan said, leaning forward. "Has anyone tried talking to them about business opportunities, technology licensing, patent sharing?" The officer blinked in confusion. "Sir, they've declared war on us." Alan waved his hand dismissively. "Details. Wars cost money. Business makes money. I'm sure they'd rather make a profit than waste resources." Meanwhile, in a mall parking lot in Columbus, Ohio, a small Vraxian scout ship touched down next to a minivan. The ship had been damaged in the Nevada attack and needed repairs. Two Vraxian soldiers emerged cautiously. They wore full armor and carried energy weapons, expecting resistance. Instead, they found shoppers taking pictures. "Cool costumes," said a teenager. "Is this for that new space movie?" Before the confused aliens could respond, mall security approached. "Sorry, folks, you can't park that here," said the guard, pointing to the spaceship. "Fire lane violation. I'm going to have to write you a ticket." While the Vraxians tried to understand what was happening, engineers Kate Warren and Bill Fisher spotted the ship from the electronics store where they worked. "That's definitely not human technology," Kate whispered. "Look at the propulsion system." Bill nodded. "Want to check it out after our shift." By the time mall security had given up trying to issue a ticket to aliens with no ID, Kate and Bill were examining the ship with professional interest. "The circuitry is amazing," Kate said, peering inside an open panel. "But their soldering technique is actually pretty primitive." Bill took photos with his phone. "We could definitely improve on this design." When the Vraxian soldiers returned, they found the humans fixing their ship. Kate had rewired a damaged system, and the engines were humming better than before. "Your power coupling was inefficient," she explained to the stunned aliens. "We improved it by about 30%. In Washington, D.C., the Department of Defense finally created a Vraxian Response Task Force. They were given a small office in the basement and told to assess the alien threat. "Our budget request was denied," said the team leader to his 5 staff members. "Apparently, the highway bill has priority." Admiral Zerktal, growing increasingly frustrated, decided to launch a decisive attack on Washington, D.C. He chose a weekend for maximum impact. Unfortunately, most government officials were away for a long weekend. Congress was in recess, and the president was at Camp David. The city was filled mostly with tourists. Retired history teacher Greg Williams was leading a group of senior citizens on a tour when the alien ships appeared overhead. "Well, this isn't on our itinerary," Greg joked, pulling out his camera. Everyone smiled with the spaceships. The seniors posed happily while Vraxian attack ships hovered in the background. Greg posted the photos to his social media page with the caption, "DC Tour got an unexpected bonus attraction." The Vraxian ships fired warning shots at several government buildings, carefully avoiding casualties as per standard invasion protocol. The energy beams left scorch marks on the White House lawn and cracked a few windows at the Capitol. News helicopters circled the scene, broadcasting live. A reporter stood in front of the White House, struggling to be heard over the alien engines. "As you can see, alien ships are firing on our nation's capital," she said professionally. "Officials are advising people to remain calm." In other news, the Nationals won their game against the Cubs, and there's a delightful food festival happening in Georgetown this weekend. Admiral Zerktal watched the news broadcast in disbelief. The humans were reporting on his attack as if it were a minor traffic incident. "This species is either the most psychologically advanced we've ever encountered," he told his officers, "or completely insane." Ryan Clark sat in his dorm room at MIT, surrounded by empty energy drink cans and half-eaten pizza. The computer science major hadn't slept in 36 hours. He was too excited. "Guys, I think I'm in," he said to his roommates. The alien signal wasn't that hard to crack. His roommates barely looked up from their video games. They were used to Ryan's wild claims. "Sure, man," one of them said. "You hacked the aliens. Cool." But Ryan really had done it. After capturing unusual signals from the Vraxian ships with his modified radio equipment, he'd spent days analyzing the patterns. It turned out that Vraxian computer security was surprisingly basic. Their whole system is built on prime numbers, Ryan muttered as his fingers flew across the keyboard. What if I just... He uploaded a simple virus he'd written as a coding exercise last semester. It was designed to overwhelm systems by generating endless calculations of pi. In orbit above Earth, 3 Vraxian warships suddenly lost power. Their engines sputtered and communication systems went dark. What's happening? Admiral Zerktal demanded as alarms blared across his flagship. We're detecting an intrusion in our central computer network, a technician reported. It's forcing our systems to perform endless calculations that serve no purpose. How is this possible? Earth doesn't have the technology to breach our security. Ryan, pleased with his success, posted his code online for other programmers to see. Check out this cool hack I wrote, he wrote in the description. I think it works on those alien ships everyone's talking about. Feel free to improve it. Within hours, thousands of programmers worldwide had downloaded Ryan's code. They began enhancing it, making it more efficient, and adding new features. Some did it for fun, others to show off their skills. None of them fully believed they were actually hacking alien technology. Admiral Zerktal watched in horror as more of his ships reported system failures. Different viruses were appearing in their networks, each more sophisticated than the last. This must be Earth's elite cyber warfare division, he told his officers. They're coordinating a massive attack. In reality, it was mostly college students and amateur coders working independently from their bedrooms and coffee shops. Meanwhile, at Johns Hopkins Medical Center, Dr. Mary Phillips made an important discovery. She had been given tissue samples from a Vraxian soldier who had been injured during the Washington attack. This is fascinating, she told her colleague as she looked through a microscope. Their cellular structure is completely different from ours. She noticed that the alien cells were breaking down rapidly when exposed to certain bacteria. I think they have no immunity to Earth microbes, she said, scribbling notes. Even common bacteria like Streptococcus are deadly to them. Rather than informing military authorities, Dr. Phillips wrote up her findings and submitted them to a scientific journal. She was mainly interested in the academic implications. One day later, several Vraxian ground troops who had landed in Central Park without proper containment suits began to fall ill. They had planned to set up a forward base, but instead found themselves struggling with symptoms similar to severe flu. The Vraxian medical officer examined the sick soldiers with growing alarm. Something in this planet's environment is attacking our immune systems, he reported to Admiral Zerktal. The humans must have weaponized their entire biosphere. The Admiral stared at the latest reports in disbelief. First a coordinated cyber attack, and now biological warfare. How had he underestimated these humans so badly? They don't even seem concerned about our presence, he said. It's as if they knew all along they could defeat us easily. Back on Earth, Ryan Clark had finally gone to sleep, unaware that his simple coding project had disabled a third of the Vraxian fleet. Dr. Phillips was already working on her next research paper, thinking the Vraxian tissue samples would help her get published in a prestigious journal. And most humans continued to believe the whole alien invasion was an elaborate marketing stunt for an upcoming movie. Paul Davis adjusted his tie as the makeup artist finished powdering his face. As the top news anchor for National Evening News, he was finally doing a primetime special on the alleged alien war. "We're live in 30 seconds, called the director. Paul nodded and reviewed his notes one last time. 3 weeks had passed since the first Vraxian attack, and ratings suggested people might finally be interested in hearing more about it. The red light on the camera turned on, and Paul put on his serious news face. Good evening, America. For the past 3 weeks, ships from the so-called Vraxian Empire have been appearing in our skies. Tonight, we take an in-depth look at these visitors and ask, is this really a war, or just the most elaborate publicity stunt in history? The hour-long special covered the attacks on Nevada and Washington, interviewed witnesses, and showed footage of the aliens. The segment on Vraxian fashion choices generated the most interest, with viewers fascinated by the aliens' ornate armor and unusual helmets. Social media influencer Heather Jones watched the special with growing excitement. With 5 million followers across various platforms, she was always looking for trending topics. "This alien style is actually kind of fierce," she said to her phone camera as she recorded a live reaction video. "I'm going to recreate their look tomorrow." The next day, Heather posted a dress like a Vraxian tutorial. She used household items to create a remarkably accurate copy of Vraxian battle armor. Her video went viral within hours. "Notice how the chest plate only covers the upper torso, leaving the lower ribs exposed," she explained, pointing to her costume. "And the helmet blocks peripheral vision. Not very practical, but definitely a statement look." Thousands of her followers began creating their own Vraxian costumes, competing to make the most accurate versions. Without realizing it, they were exposing critical weaknesses in Vraxian combat armor. Admiral Zerktal watched these videos with growing horror. The humans were not only analyzing Vraxian armor design, but mocking it publicly. "They're revealing our tactical vulnerabilities as entertainment," he said to his officers. "This level of psychological warfare is unprecedented." Meanwhile, a popular children's cartoon introduced a new character, a bumbling Vraxian soldier named Zork who was always failing at his invasion plans. Children loved the clumsy alien with his silly accent and catchphrase, "Earth will surrender, eventually." Across the Vraxian fleet, morale began to drop. Several soldiers, after watching intercepted Earth broadcasts, began questioning the war. "They don't seem like a threat," one Vraxian soldier said to another during their rest period. "And their food looks amazing. Did you see that thing called pizza?" 4 Vraxian soldiers decided to defect. They took a small ship and landed near a farm in Kansas. They approached the farmhouse with their hands up, having learned this was a human peace gesture. The farmer and his wife invited them in for dinner, thinking they were people in costumes from a nearby science fiction convention. The Vraxians, tasting home-cooked Earth food for the first time, were overwhelmed by the flavors. The Vraxian High Command sent an urgent message to Admiral Zerktal. "Explain your failure to conquer Earth immediately." The Admiral stared at the message for a long time. How could he explain that humans were defeating them by simply not caring about the war? That Earth's most powerful weapons seemed to be their entertainment media and food. A television writer named Dan Brown was pitching a new show idea to network executives. "It's a workplace comedy set during an alien invasion," he explained. "The main characters work at a government agency that's supposed to deal with the aliens, but they're more concerned with office politics and their personal lives." The executives loved it. Invasion Incorporated was greenlit for a full season before Dan even left the building. The first episode featured a scene where government workers tried to schedule a meeting with alien invaders, but the aliens were put on hold and forgotten. When it aired, it became an instant hit. Even some Vraxian soldiers, secretly watching stolen Earth broadcasts, found themselves laughing at the show. After 6 weeks of failed attacks and growing confusion, the United Nations finally decided to organize a formal diplomatic response to the Vraxians. Unfortunately, this came during the annual International Climate Conference, which meant all senior diplomats were unavailable. Nancy Lee, a junior diplomat who had joined the State Department just 8 months ago, was asked to lead the negotiation team. "Me? Are you sure?" Nancy asked her boss over the phone. "You're the only one available with the right clearance," her boss explained. "Just stall them until next week when the real diplomats get back." The meeting was arranged on neutral ground, a conference room at a hotel in Geneva. The Vraxian delegation arrived in full military regalia, led by a senior commander who had been sent by Admiral Zerktal. Nancy wore her only business suit and brought a notebook. She had spent the previous night researching basic diplomatic protocols and reading everything available about the Vraxians. "Greetings, Earth representative," The Vraxian commander began formally. "We are prepared to discuss the terms of your surrender." Nancy blinked. "Surrender? Oh, we're not here for that. I was thinking we could discuss a cultural exchange program maybe, or trade agreements." The Vraxians looked at each other in confusion. This was not how conquered species typically behaved. "Perhaps you misunderstand," the commander said slowly. "We have attacked your military bases and government buildings. This is war." Nancy shrugged. "Well, you didn't really hurt anyone, and you fixed that highway in Nebraska when you landed on it. The local mayor actually wanted me to thank you for that." For the next 3 hours, Nancy continued to baffle the Vraxians with her straightforward approach. She asked practical questions about their technology, their dietary needs, and whether they had any good recipes to share. The Vraxians, trained in the art of diplomatic deception, kept waiting for the trick. They expected human negotiators to be cunning and indirect. Nancy's simple questions and honest curiosity completely threw them off balance. "Would you be interested in student exchange programs?" she asked. "We have some great universities." By the end of the meeting, Nancy had accidentally negotiated favorable terms simply by being direct. The Vraxians agreed to stop attacks, share certain technologies, and establish regular communication channels. Meanwhile, the Vraxian emperor had become personally interested in the strange humans who seemed immune to fear. He demanded a meeting with Earth's supreme leader. Admiral Zerktal panicked. His intelligence teams had been trying to identify Earth's true ruler without success. Their government structures were confusing, with power seemingly spread across many individuals. One name kept appearing in their intelligence reports: John Smith. The name was mentioned thousands of times in Earth records, far more than any other human name. This John Smith must be their hidden leader, the admiral concluded. Find him. The Vraxians located a John Smith in Portland, Oregon. He was a substitute teacher at a local high school. They assumed his modest job was a clever cover for his true power. They sent a diplomatic shuttle to bring him to a meeting with the emperor. John was grading papers when armed Vraxians appeared in his classroom after school hours. "John Smith, the emperor of the Vraxian Empire requests your presence," announced the lead soldier. John looked up and adjusted his glasses. "Is this about the science fair? I told Principal Garcia I'd help with the judging." Before he knew what was happening, John was aboard a spacecraft heading for the Vraxian flagship. He remained remarkably calm, assuming this was an elaborate prank by his fellow teachers. When he was brought before the emperor, a massive Vraxian with golden armor and 6 eyes instead of the usual 4, John simply nodded politely. "Nice costume," he said. "Very detailed." The emperor studied this seemingly ordinary human with fascination. "You lead your people with such a clever disguise. A simple teacher who controls a planet. Impressive." John, still thinking this was some kind of reality show prank, decided to play along. "Well, I find that practical solutions usually work best. Have you tried just talking to us instead of all this war business?" The emperor was struck by the wisdom of these simple words. Perhaps the war had been a mistake from the beginning. 2 months after their first attack on Earth, the Vraxian Empire made a historic announcement. In a message broadcast to all Earth media outlets, the Vraxian Emperor declared an official end to the war. After careful consideration and cultural exchange, the Emperor stated, "We have determined that Earth would make a better ally than a subject. We formally surrender and request peaceful relations." Most humans, who had barely noticed they were at war in the first place, took the news with the same indifference they had shown to the entire conflict. "Did you hear the aliens surrendered?" asked one office worker to another over coffee. "No, but did you catch the game last night? Amazing comeback in the 4th quarter." Admiral Zerktal was removed from command for his failure to conquer Earth. The Emperor replaced him with Admiral Fernax, who had suggested from the beginning that humans might be too unusual to treat like other species. The new admiral's first official act was to propose a cultural exchange program, inspired by substitute teacher John Smith's suggestion. 500 Vraxian scientists and artists would visit Earth, while a similar number of humans would be invited to tour Vraxian worlds. Surprisingly, there was a long waiting list of humans eager to visit alien planets, not because they were impressed by Vraxian power, but because they thought it would be pretty cool to see other worlds. Farmer Peter Johnson, whose cornfield had been damaged by a Vraxian probe, finally received approval for his insurance claim. The company classified the damage under Act of God/Alien and sent him a check. To celebrate, Peter threw a barbecue and, on a whim, invited the local Vraxian cultural attaché. The alien diplomat, expecting a formal diplomatic function, was shocked to find himself at a casual backyard gathering with Peter's family and neighbors. No one seemed intimidated by his presence. A child even asked him to help flip burgers. The Vraxian was so charmed by the experience that he invited Peter to become Earth's unofficial ambassador to the Vraxian homeworld. Peter agreed, as long as he could be back in time for the harvest. Meanwhile, several alien technologies began appearing in consumer products with little fanfare. The most popular was a Vraxian energy cell that could power a smartphone for a month on a single charge. The public was pleased, but not amazed. They had expected such improvements eventually anyway. In return, humanity offered solutions to the Vraxian Empire's aging energy infrastructure. Earth had been working on similar problems for decades and had developed innovative approaches that the long-established Vraxian engineers had never considered. Alan Ross of Global Innovations created the first human-Vraxian joint venture. The company focused on adapting Vraxian medical technology for human use while providing Earth's entertainment media to the Vraxian market. It became profitable within 6 months. A year after the war ended, a documentary filmmaker named Cindy Baker produced The War We Missed, chronicling the entire Vraxian conflict. It became a minor streaming hit and won several awards at independent film festivals. The most interesting outcome, however, was how the rest of the galaxy viewed Earth after the conflict. Other alien civilizations, many of which had been conquered by the Vraxians centuries ago, watched in amazement as humans defeated the Empire without even trying. Diplomatic representatives from a dozen alien worlds visited Earth, hoping to learn the secret of humanity's strategic indifference. They couldn't understand how a species could be so unconcerned about an invasion that they barely interrupted their daily routines. In a meeting of galactic powers, an alien diplomat from the Centauri Alliance summed up the new view of Earth. They defeated the Vraxian Empire through pure indifference. Imagine what they could do if they actually cared. Earth was now classified as a major galactic power, despite having only the most basic interplanetary capabilities. No one wanted to risk discovering what would happen if humans ever became genuinely interested in galactic politics. And the average person on Earth, they went about their lives as always, occasionally glancing up at the stars and thinking it was nice to have some new friends out there. Nothing worth getting too excited about.